So, good evening, class again. This is going to be the week four of the Joy of Computing. And this class will go through one of my favorite topics in Python, list comprehension. And we'll look into recursive functions because those are something you need to know in programming. You will come across them a couple of times. And I will show you where to get a lot of practice questions from. Like, there are a lot of questions you can easily get, but some places are just more fun than others. So I guess we can start. So okay, so while I'm taking the class, I would recommend that you mute yourself. If there are any questions, you can ask in the chat. Oh, sorry, Namima, I didn't see your question. You're not able to access the discussion forum. Give me a second. So the way I normally access the discussion forum is like just clicking ask a question. Does this not work for you, Namina? Are you logged into the right account? You might have accidentally left. Okay, can I clarify this after class? Because technically this is not specifically related to programming. We'll look at this after yeah, sure. Okay, so we can know this. So yeah, list comprehension. So in the last few classes, you know about lists, you know about tuples, you know about ranges, strings, and all those things. Now, there are list comprehension. It's a slightly more mathematical sense of what lists are. So, let's say we have a array which is 2, 3, 7, 8, and 11. Say you want to make a new array with the element. Okay, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you are familiar with the topic I'm speaking right now, feel free to just try solving some of the questions I've written in the notepad behind me. So in case if you find what I'm saying not interesting, you can just solve the questions. Oh, these questions over here. Cool. If you have any questions regarding the questions behind me, you can feel free to ask right in the chat. So right now we'll be talking about list comprehension. So list comprehension is a more mathematical way for you to look at lists essentially. In maths, one of the defining features of a set. Tarun, is this the first class you're attending? Because today's class will be dependent on stuff you have learned in the last few classes.
Yes, sir, this is the first class for me.
I'm really sorry. In that case, it will be better if you watch the last 3 weeks of lectures to understand. It's a little. It's not reasonable to assume you can understand things after a month of classes, right? So I would recommend that you look at the last few weeks classes and then come here.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so about list comprehension. So in maths, we have a thing like if you have a set, you can make another set using very simple concepts like for example the definition of a function and things like that. Now what list, so say I want to create a list B whose elements are, let's make a function also. So here I've made a general function which, when given an input, it will just give a plus 4. Now I want to generate a array B where every element of array B is related to the array A in this sense. Sorry, list A. So one way you can do it is for element in A, B dot append generic math function of element, print A, print B. So if you run this, you first get the first one, and the second one is just the same thing, like, except you have every element you have added 4, so 2 becomes 6, 4 becomes 8, and so on. Now this is slightly verbose, there is a little bit of steps involved, and it's not elegant, and things like this often happen a little often in Python. So for this, Python allows you to do something called list comprehension. That is, I can do all of this in just one line. That will look like this. If you look, it's very similar to how the loop method is. Essentially, instead of writing it like this, using an append and things, I'm directly calculating B using the list method itself. So if you run this, you will get the same output. I can delete this if you want. If you run this, you get the same output. So the idea is, you're essentially generating B in a very mathematical sense. You can also add checks. So I can say, I only want even numbers. I only want to apply this function. B should only have the even numbers of A. So I'll do if element mod 2 is equal to 0. So if I run this, now, that's right. Yeah, so right now it added 4 to 2 and got 6, 4 to 4 and got 8, but 7 is avoided because 7 does not satisfy this. So this is the essence of list comprehension, and it's kind of very useful. So with list comprehension, you can kind of easily do the second question which is above me. So does anyone want to try making that sarcastic font generator? Aisha, is that a specific question regarding last week's this thing, or is that a generic question?
It was there in last week's lectures, speech to text.
Okay, let me just
And I
quickly
wasn't able to save the file, so I didn't get an output.
look into it. Give me a second.
Okay.
Oh, so it's week 5 topics.
Hello.
Yeah.
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 Week 5 topic.
Did I even install this? Okay, so I'll just do one small thing. I personally really do not like Spider because I just find it to be very clunky. It doesn't the autocomplete is not as fast as I like it to be. So file today class.py can move this off. I don't need you anymore. Yep, I don't have this. Okay. Can I answer this next week?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like I kind of only prepared for like week 4 because that's what they told me to do. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Did someone else have a question? Someone had unmuted. Okay, it doesn't matter. So, okay, so yeah, let's look at. I'll just copy. So, one useful thing to do is one. Okay, so we are doing this question, and I'll be honest, there are multiple ways you can do this. So if the if you want to do it your way, I would totally recommend that you try this yourself. Like there are ways, you don't need list comprehension for this. You can just use normal functions. You can use normal variables and things like that and solve it. And there are several other things. Like I'll just try to make this like the shortest possible function because that's fun, I guess. So one thing is the important thing of the sarcastic SpongeBob meme font is the letters are kind of random. You're capitalizing you're uppercasing the letter in a random sense. So first things first, we obviously need the random module. You can kind of see like why I prefer VS Code over Spider. The autocomplete is just faster. So okay, now the thing is we need to get a user input first. So let's store that. Text is equal to input, enter the text. Now we need to go through the letters of this and one by one change it to like make it uppercase or lowercase. So let's do that. So the easiest way to go through the letters individually will be like for character in text, and now we want to change it uppercase or lowercase, right? So we'll just print it. Print character dot upper. So this will just directly make it uppercase, but I don't always want to make it uppercase. It should be uppercase on randomly, right? So we'll just if we'll use the random, if random dot random is less than 0.3, some random number, I'll print the uppercase value. Else, I'll print the lowercase value. Do you see any issues with this code? There is an issue, but so let's just try to run it. If you don't try to run this, I mean, we can find mistakes after we run it, right? There's nothing. So let's try. Okay, and let's enter the text. Hello there. Yeah, that's an issue, isn't it? We don't want it to print on the next line. We want it to print on the same line. So in that case, we'll just add the thing we have done earlier. End is equal to this, and we'll copy this, paste it, and now we print it, and we do it again. Hello. And this time it's kind of fine, right? Is it though? Okay, can we do better than this? Like, if you honestly ask me, this is a little verbose. Right? You have so many lines. Like, why do I have two print statements? Can I just have one? So one way we can do that is Python allows you to have if statements in one line. And in the sense, it's a slightly different thing, but you can have if statements in one line. That is, instead of doing this, I can do this is why people say Python is very similar to English, because I want to print this. Why is this not? Yeah. I want to print this if random dot random is less than 0.5, else I'll print this. And using the sem and is equal to this. So instead of doing it like that, we can do it in one line like this. So if you run this, you'll get the same output, almost the same output. Oh God. Yeah. Oops, sorry. I hope my screen is visible and the terminal is fine. Otherwise, I can open it better here. Okay. So yeah, the program does what we want it to, and it kind of does it randomly. So that's kind of what we want. But we can do this using list comprehension as well. So let's do that. Why not? Essentially, right now I'm showing there are multiple ways you can do this, and it's all up to you. In fact, another thing you could do is like define a function. I hope this function made sense. Oh, I'm using 0.5 just as a random number. Like, is my voice not audible? Or does it break? I hope it's fine. Okay, if there's any issues, please do write in the chat. I'll check again. Okay, so okay, just a quick recap. Firstly, Firstly, I'm introducing a slightly new notation, and that is the if else in one line. This is called the Turner operator. the ternary operator. It's there in many languages in slightly different forms. Like C++ has the ternary operator as this, which is really ugly, but that's C++ for you. And Python has a very English version of the ternary operator. It's exactly as it's supposed to be read out. So it takes this value if this is true, otherwise it takes this value. So what I was saying is, instead of writing this here, I could instead just now make it more clear with this. So now it's pretty obvious what I'm doing. I get a character, I randomly change it, and I print it. Can we do this using list comprehension? Of course. So let's try that. So I can write random change of character for character in text. And so this is a list with the randomly changed characters. So if I print this, print like Python also. So I'm just adding print statements here so that it goes to the next line. Yeah, so the first two things make sense, but the second one, last one, it's a list in the end. We don't want a list, we want a string. So it is kind of necessary to know how to convert lists to strings and strings to lists and all the other things like that. So for strings to lists, what you can do is use the string join method. So if I have a string, let's say string is equal to hello. String has a method called join. Essentially what that does is you're able to join multiple strings together. But it's not intuitive. What string join does, I can show you. So if I have string dot join, I add a list of string hello there, hello there, and some random word y speech. So I should trim this. Yeah, so what string.join does is it joins these strings with this. So I have hello there y speech, and in between all of them we have triple dots. So instead of printing this, I must print and that will give you the output we want. Why do you do this? As you see, so here we have like 3 different methods to do the same thing. There are many ways you can do this thing. Like small clarification, one person asked why I use 0.5. I just randomly use 0.5. If I want more uppercase letters, I'll increase this, and then it would make it this uppercase. I'll increase this, so if I make this, and now it will be like a longer text to show an increase in So here you can see like majority of the letters are uppercase, but that's because the random function of random gives you a number between 0 and 1. As the you can look at the definition and you can see it. I can like essentially random gives you a number between 0 and 1, and since it's completely random, well, I can use greater than. It depends on what I want actually. If you want, I can write this. I can write this as random.random is greater than 0.2. Random.random just gives me a completely random number. Now, if this random number is greater than a number, then I will change it to an uppercase, because the important thing about this sarcastic text thing is the randomness. I want to randomly change some letters. There are many ways you can do this. I'm just suggesting one way. If you are more comfortable on the way, you can try that. Like some people might think that might feel that prime numbers are random. So maybe instead of doing it like this, you can just select the prime number elements and then change that to uppercase. But it's up to you. Another thing, instead of random.random, you can use, there are other ones, like for example, you can take a Gaussian, 0, 1, and this will also give you a, enter the text, and write me very frightening. It does it in using some other random number generator. In this case, I'm using less than, greater than now, because that's just appropriate. You can do whatever you want actually. The important takeaway is there are multiple ways to do the same function. I am not imposing my method on you. If you have your own method, I love to see your own methods. The primarily important thing about programming is that you program yourself. Try your own method. Experiment. So the next thing, okay, yeah. Okay, so here I have the list comprehension method. Similar to list comprehension, you can also have tuple comprehension. So I can do print what's that thing called? A multiplied by A for A in range 10. Okay, so I was going to talk about modules a little today also, so we'll look into that. So you have functions like print, map, filter, enumerate, and things like that by default in Python. Okay, these all functions have their own uses, but some functions are more specific. Like a general Python program might not need it. For example, how many functions will need the square root function? I mean, how many programs need the square root function? You don't always need square root. You don't always need every math operations. So in case you need to include math operations, you will include the math module. So I'll write that as import math. Now, if I have imported math, that means I can have a lot of math functions. Like, for example, if I want the variable the constant e, I can get that. So this will give me the constant e. If I want square root, I have the square root. It tells you exactly how it gives you. So similarly, if I want random numbers, I'll import random. Okay, random has many functions. Like here you go. Like you can have choices, gamma, Gaussian, and lots of other things. So if you want to random integer, you'll use randint. If you want, you can, yeah, then lots of other things like that. Random.random just gives you a number between 0 and 1. It takes it from a uniform distribution between 0 and 1. That's what random.random does. Like there are many modules. Like in fact, Python is so powerful because of the number of modules. Another module which is like incredibly useful is NumPy. Okay, so one more thing. Sometimes, like, I don't want to always write math for everything. So I can just say import math as m. So instead of writing math everywhere, I can just write m dot. So that's just a small thing. So you might see things like import numpy as np, and then I can just write np dot and get all the functions in numpy. Similarly, earlier I could have done import random as r and done r dot random. So that's just small things to make it. Week 4 of assignment. Okay, so technically I don't think that assignment is corrected yet. Give me a second. So yeah, so I'm very sorry, I'm not allowed to answer questions of an assignment which is not corrected yet. I can answer week 3 questions, but not week 4. I hope that's reasonable. Like if you can phrase it in a way that I don't reveal the answer, then I can do that. But oh, this question. Yeah, I have issues with that question as well. So I yeah, let's just move on from that. Like there's a small gap in what's that thing called? Yeah, between the like I am expected to just solve questions and try explaining math. Did you put? That's weird. I'll try. Did you miss a letter? Okay. This on this one. Yeah, essentially string.ascii letters just prints every letter. You might have made a mistake by doing things like something like this. Like if you make a spelling mistake, it would do the things. Or maybe you did not import it. So just in case someone was wondering, whenever I save, I automatically, like there's a code which automatically formats the code. So, and it is according to good programming practices, you're supposed to put your import statements at the top of the file. So that's why the import statements suddenly jumped up. You might have copied that incorrectly, to be honest. Like if no, because the program works, it won't give an infinite loop. I know that, but the output of the program is a little awkward. I do not deny, but that does not mean the program does not work. It won't give you an infinite loop. Yeah, that's correct. I also think the options are wrong, but I unfortunately have no say on what the things are supposed to do. Okay, anyway, so did anyone do this first question? Do you know what the Fibonacci sequence is and so on? Now, once again, there are multiple ways to solve the question about the Fibonacci sequence. I will highlight it. Yes, this is. Yeah. So, the Fibonacci sequence is, to be honest, it's just a mathematical thing to make questions like this very fun. So, essentially, the Fibonacci sequence goes like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on. Essentially, the first number, the next number is the sum of the previous two numbers. So the Fibonacci number starts with 1 and 1. So the next number is 1 plus 1, 2. To get the next number after this, I add these two, that's 3. And then I add these two, that's 5, and so on. So can you try writing a function? So that's a matter of convention. It can be 0 and 1, but that's essentially just shifting what I've said by over by 1, right? Like people can say it's 1 comma 1, 0 comma 1. The next thing is what I've said after that, and so on. So can you try writing a program which calculates the Fibonacci number? Okay, so regarding import statements, there's also another thing you can do. Like for example, say you're going to use random very often in the code. Like you'll use that in like a lot of functions. Then it's very inconvenient to write random every time, right? So one thing you can do in this case is to do from random import random, or let's say rand int. So what this means is I'm going to be importing randint and random from the module. I'll just use Gaussian. Okay, I just that. Yeah. So what this means is, instead of writing random.random every time or random.randint every time, I can just call randint and that's done with it. So here, instead of having random.gauss, I can just write Gauss and get those things. So a simple way to do the Fibonacci sequence will, we don't need functions, let's just do a normal way. So let's take an input, number is equal to int input, tell me a number please. Now given a number, I have to calculate so many, so we will use Iyalagusu's convention. So we'll say a is equal to 0, b is equal to 1 if num is less than, if num is equal to 0, print a, if num is equal to 1, print b. So the next, so okay, well, I'll write, name it better. Okay, so if you remember correctly, the definition was the next number is the sum of the previous two. So previous plus next, and the previous number, I hope this sentence makes sense. So I'm assigning previous to next number and next number to previous plus next number at this in the same line. Okay. So and index is equal to index plus 1. Hopefully this works. Then next num. I'm off by 1, so less than or equal to. Yeah. Did it make sense? Did it make sense? I agree, I have done a little bit of witchcraft here, but essentially I'm just writing the definition of the Fibonacci sequence. The next number is the sum of the previous two numbers. And so when you're calculating the next number, it will alternate, change the values one by one. So this is one way you can do it. There are other ways you can do it. For example, we can write a function. Fibo n if n is equal to 0, I'll explain that just after I complete this, after I write the function. Okay. So this will also work because remember, by the definition of the Fibonacci sequence, the Fibonacci of n is the Fibonacci of n minus 1 plus Fibonacci of n, the sum of the previous two terms. So this is what that is essentially, right? In fact, we can simplify these two by doing things like less than or equal to n and return n. So if you run this,
ఏళ్ళకు పూసేసి వచ్చింది.
print Fibo of so if I input number 5, if I input the number 5, it gives me 5. If I input the number 13, it calculates and tells us the 13th Fibonacci number. What if I want to create a list of Fibonacci numbers? Like just calculate all the Fibonacci numbers from 1 to 25. What's the easiest way to do it? As you could guess, I'd say the easiest way to do this is by using list comprehension. So I don't need that. So let's so one thing you can see about Python functions is it's kind of very simple. Like here, I've easily calculated the first 25 Fibonacci numbers just like that. Also, which code do you want me to explain? This one? Including the previous one. Like this one also. Okay. Okay, I'll write this better, I guess. Okay. Okay, before that, I'll just answer what the Gauss was to Priya. So there are many different ways to have a Gaussian random number. Like for example, there is just the uniform distribution and there's the Gaussian distribution and things like that. So I'll so like
Sir,
yeah. No, wait, one. Like for example, random number PDF probability distribution function. Okay, so why? Okay, so sometimes you want the random numbers to come from a specific. Okay, that's a more complicated way of explaining it. I'll just explain the easy way. So sometimes when you roll a die, every outcome of the die is equally likely. So that's a case of a uniform random number. So in this case, it's actually you'll do that using the rand int function. what rand int does is it gives us a number between two numbers. So if I do rand int of 1,6,
Hello, Naveen sir. 1 minute.
yes, I'll just quickly explain random numbers to Priya. Hope she's still here.
Yep.
Yeah. So for example, if I do print rand int of 1,6, it will give me a random number from 1,6, just like how you roll a die and you get a random number. So this time it gave me 5, this time it gave me 2, and so on.
Hello.
Manoj, that sounds familiar. Yes,
So
we have
can
a
I ask
question.
so can I ask question for assignment?
Which assignment?
Week
Which assignment?
week 4.
I'm not allowed to answer week 4 assignment questions because the solution's not out yet. But if the could you write it down?
Hello.
Yes, Guna. Guna, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. So Priya, I hope that so that's what the rand int does. Rand int gives you a random integer, and essentially there are lots of ways to get a random number. Like sometimes you want a random number between 0 and 1. So like 0.2, 0.7, 0.86, and all the random numbers like that. But sometimes you want the random numbers from a specific type. Like for example, you want the random numbers to be closer to 0 than to 70. Like you want it to be more likely to get 0 than it is to get 75, and things like that. For things like that, you'll get something called a distribution. Like for example, if I do DOS 0, 1. Oh, a better idea would be so here I've randomly generated numbers from a Gaussian distribution, and if you see, like majority of those numbers are like not all the numbers. There are some numbers which are far away from 0. Like this is minus 2.3. That's like a very big number, very small number. And then this is 1.39. But most of the numbers are like between minus 1 and 1. So sometimes you want to take random numbers, but selectively in a sense. Like some numbers should be more likely than others. And that's Gaussian is one such distribution. So I hope that clarifies what Gauss is to Priya. I'll now explain the Fibonacci code to Aggressive. Okay, so we first start by taking a number, a random. We take the number from the user.
Okay, can I ask one question?
Who's this? Yes. Yes.
I want first week, second week. First week, second week, all. Now only I joined. Then how I collect that?
I didn't get you. You want what?
I'm now only common in the class. Okay, week 1, week 2 are all not able to come in. That's what I do.
You should look into the week 1 and week 2 course
How
things.
to?
So if once you go to the SWIME portal, you can see all the assignments and stuff. So you have a lot of lectures to watch, but yeah.
Okay.
Like essentially, you need practice and time to be better at programming. So it would help if you look at all the lectures. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to learn programming.
Okay.
Could you mute yourself?
Sir?
Could you mute?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, so where was I? Yeah. Okay, so first we take a get a number from the user. Now remember the list of Fibonacci numbers are like, yeah. So technically, if the user gives us the number 4, you should take the fourth Fibonacci number. So in this case, it's 3. Did someone raise their hands? Yes, Manoj, what's the question? Okay, I'll take your question after I complete this, okay? So, however, I mean, here I've just written this value for us to know what number we need, okay? So, if a number is, if the user says 0 or 1, we know immediately what the Fibonacci number is. If the user asks for the first Fibonacci number, we know it's 0. If the user asks for the second Fibonacci number, we know it's 1. So, but what if the user asks for the third Fibonacci number? That means you have to calculate the Fibonacci number from the previous two. The third Fibonacci number will be 0 plus 1 and we'll get 1 like that. So, it's important to note what the previous and the next numbers are. So, I'll just keep that here. The first number is 0, second number is 1. Now, I'll just quickly
Hello, sir.
yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So what is Fibonacci number?
Yes. Okay. So the Fibonacci number is like a list of numbers that follow a certain pattern. The pattern is the first number is 0, second number is 1.
Sir,
And
in
then
ascending order or descending order?
No, it's not in ascending. You'll see the pattern. So the second number,
Right.
you could not interrupt. So the third number is the sum of the first and second number. The fourth number is the sum of the second and third number, and so on. So it starts with 0, then 1, then I add these two. What's 0 plus 1? 1. Then I add these two. What's 1 plus 1? 2. Then I add these two. That's 3. And then I add these two, and that gives us 5. Add these two, and that gives us 8, and so on. I hope that explains what the Fibonacci sequence is.
Yeah, sir.
Okay, cool. Explain this code for I in range 1 to 21 if I mod 3. Oh, this was the assignment question. Tarun, you are enrolled in the course, right? So you should be able to see, like, if you have an account, you can go to my courses and open the Joy of Computing, go to course, and you'll be able to see the course. So you can go to week 1 like this. Now,
Okay, sir.
explain.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for I in range, depends on which assignment. Arsu left. Sorry, Arsu. Okay. So for I in range 1 to 21, what is your question, Aliya Asker?
Sir, can you explain me the code? I can't understand the code.
Did you try like putting it in a debugger and see how the code runs? Because if you don't understand the code, it really helps to put in a debugger and run. So I'll put it into the Spider debugger because that's kind of neat. Okay, so do you remember how to go to? Should I go through this again? So to put a debugger, just put breakpoints wherever you want. Breakpoints are essentially places where the program will stop. Okay. Tarun, do you still have a question? Okay. So, Manoj, if you have a question assignment, like if it's week 4, I can't answer, but anything before that, I can try to answer. And I would recommend you put in the chat. Okay, wait. Ali Asghar, I'll just quickly finish the explanation of the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, cool. So, okay. So first, I'll just, instead of doing this, I'll just this. So essentially here, I'm hard coding the first two inputs. If the users asks for the first number, I'll print 0. If the user asks for the second number, I'll print 1. Okay. Now, for every other value, I have to calculate the Fibonacci number. So if the user asks for 3, if num is equal to 3, I must add previous and print So this is what it should be if the user asks for 3. But what if the user asks for 4 instead? I have to do some calculation for that again, right? So essentially, remember, for a Fibonacci number, the important two things are the previous two numbers. So maybe I should just call this previous 2 and previous 1. So while something is less than num, I'll just write in index here. Give me a second. So I need to slowly go step by step to which number I want. Control X, Control V. So I'm starting with index 2 because every other index, before that I've calculated everything. Okay?
Hello, sir.
Yes, Manoj?
So what software you are used for Python coding?
Right now I'm using VS Code because I like VS Code's autocomplete more than Spider's autocomplete.
So VS Code?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Essentially, it's almost exactly the same as Spider. I just like the looks better. Okay. Now, okay. So remember, for the next Fibonacci number, it's a sum of the previous two Fibonacci numbers. So I'll add the next Fibo is equal to previous 1 plus previous 2. But now that I found the next, I must update what previous 1 and previous 2 are. So previous 2 should be the new previous value. So that's previous 1, and previous 1 should be this, and I increase the index. Okay. So this code was just calculating all of those in the same line. I hope this works though. So if you, once you have reached that thing, you can do print next Fibo I'm just writing this here because let's ignore. The print can be inside, but Python's a little weird in that sense. Like essentially here I've created next fibber, so I can use it anywhere after that.
Okay.
So tell me a number, I'll put 5. I made a mistake in counting. Less than or equal to. Okay. Okay, yeah. I'll just comment this also. If I put 5, it will give me, so I don't, yeah. Yeah. So one nice thing I like is the 12th Fibonacci number is 144. So that's just a convenient, nice pattern. So the main difference between what I've done here and here is I just wrote this in one line. Like everything I've done here in 3 lines, 4 lines, I wrote it in one line here. That's the only difference. And like technically speaking, I don't need to have next fibber because previous one is always next fibber. So Sue, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir. I am answering this question.
Okay, Manoj, what is your question? If you want, I would recommend you put the question in the chat because it's easier that way.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the next thing I wanted to, yeah, and after that we look at the recursive definition. So there's that. Okay. Now, important things about programming. Most important thing while studying Python is to program things yourself. Like you should take a random question and try solving it yourself. So for this you need random questions, right? So
Yes.
I personally recommend things like, so there's a site called LeetCode which has questions like this. So it properly explains the question and tells you how it should be. You can ignore what class is and things like that, but and like if you go to LeetCode has like tons of questions, and you can select the difficulty of random questions you want. I would recommend you start with easy and start to do things like, for example, here the question is not too difficult. Essentially, you should it's very self-explanatory. Given a non-integer number x, find the square root of x to the nearest integer. So you can try your own method to solve this, and essentially you just have to write a function. Okay, but
Write a program that given some text writes the text in.
what? Anyway, so hmm?
One program.
Yes, you want me to solve this? I mean, there are
Make a
many ways you can solve it.
Can solve on
Also, I can't hear you. Could you type it out? But the issue I find with LeetCode is that LeetCode expects you to write like if you write an unfortunately bad program, the lead code will straight up say, no, that's a bad solution, which I feel is very inconducive to properly learning.
Make a program.
Manoj, I only heard the make a prob part. I didn't hear the rest of the question.
Make a program that conducts कौन बनेगा करोड़पति. I ask
Yeah.
question.
So this question, right?
Yes, sir.
Like, do you have a solution? It's not a difficult question. It's you just have to think a little.
Sir, I am not understanding this question. Please explain.
Like, essentially, the question is when you start the program, it will ask you a lot of questions. I mean, it will ask you one question, give you a couple of options, ask you to select an option, and after it select an option, after you select an option, it will tell you if you're right or wrong. If you're wrong, then that's it. You lost the game. If you're right, you'll go to the next question. And you will keep doing this and increase a counter of values, counter of your winnings, and until you're like at 15 questions. And if you finish 15 questions, that means you win. Like that's a game which has been there on the television a while back. Like for this question, well, there are many ways to solve this. The easiest way to solve this, okay, let's just.
So what is the easy method to solve this question?
Which one? Which question do you want? The lead code question or the property question?
So this question, make a program ये that conducts.
Yeah, what about it?
So in this question, कौन बनेगा करोड़पति?
Yes.
Who wants to be?
Oh, can you not read the question?
So
Like, it's just a popular game. Who wants to be a millionaire? Essentially, all you just keep asking questions. The more questions you get correct, the more money you get. That's it. So the program should just keep asking questions. If you get it right, you win.
are you solve this question?
I didn't solve it yet, but it's a question for you guys to solve.
So it is my side. Solve me.
What do you mean?
So this question solve for students.
Yeah, you have to solve it yourself to get a hang of programming.
But I will not understand.
What did you not understand?
So please explain कर दीजिए sir.
Like the idea is when you start the program, it will ask you a question. If you get the answer correct, it will ask you the next question, and so on. The questions will be MCQs. So the first question will be like, who is the president of India now? And it'll give you
This
4
question is-
options.
So this question is based on program.
No, it's just random general knowledge questions. So you can just get a lot of general knowledge questions, put it in some
Okay.
file, and essentially this question requires you to know how to manipulate files. Or maybe if you want, you can just put all the questions in the program itself. It's up to you. There are many ways you can do this. Essentially, you need to have a list of questions, a list of answers, and get inputs from users and things like that. Okay? Okay, now let's go to the square root thing. So one easy solution would be, I'll have I is equal to 0 while I multiplied by I is less than x.
So this question is solved by the method of looping method.
Well, you can solve it using looping. There are many ways you can solve it.
So that is the best way to solve.
I mean, what do you mean by best way? There are many ways to solve. Like
So
right now,
that
the
is
best way to solve is just a solution.
yeah, sir.
So I think this function will work. I'll just run it in my machine. Print my square root of. So they said for 8 the answer should be 2. Oh, okay. So okay, so you can completely ignore what a class is. So class is like something which will be in week 8 or week 7. You can ignore what a class is. Like
So
there's something called object oriented programming which you'll eventually come across, and that will tell you what a class is and things like that. But for this question, you don't need to know what a class is. Just ignore what this class is and you ignore what this self is, and it's all same.
So in the SWAM portal, that the videos are uploaded in YouTube,
Yeah.
but the week assignment is different or same.
Week assignments. I mean,
Yes, sir.
the
Week
the
week
week.
1 or week 2, like.
I mean, the week 1 assignments are not videos, so why will they be in YouTube?
Yes, sir. I mean the videos that are uploaded in the SWAM portal
Yeah.
and the questions are same in the YouTube videos or not.
Which questions are in the YouTube? Like the assignment. I don't think the assignment questions are there on YouTube. Like we are.
So some questions are match and some are not.
What? You were interrupted. I couldn't hear you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Some my side network problem.
If you want, if it's easier for you, just write the message in chat. Okay. Anyway, so okay, yeah, this. So if I run this, I'll have so when I do my square root of 8, it prints 2, which is what we expected. So that is how you can solve a random LeetCode question. There are better ways you can solve this. In fact, this is a very rudimentary way of solving it. Like, but that's fine. The important thing is to be able to solve it. But personally, I don't like LeetCode questions that much because many of them just expect you to know specific concepts. Like some of the things in LeetCode can only be solved after you learn next week's next week's concepts and things like that. So, and something nicer, in my opinion, is something called Advent of Code. Advent of Code is essentially random questions. No, not random questions. Like in Christianity, the weeks before Christmas is called Advent. So every year, like 3 weeks before Christmas, the person who hosts this will upload questions. So on December 1st, you'll get a question, and this is the question in December 1st, and there's stories and things like that. And to get the next question, you have to answer this question. the example given here is very small, and you can probably solve this manually. But if you to get the actual input, the input is a pretty big number. Like if you check control C, control, there's 2000 lines of numbers here, and you're expected to use some programming practices to solve the question. So the question for the first week is, find the elf which carries the most calories. That is, so if you read through the stuff, so the first elf is carrying 1000, 2000 and 3000, as you can see. The next elf is carrying 4000. The next elf is carrying 5000 and 6000. So after I save this as a file, you're supposed to somehow you make a Python file to read this file and save the calorie count, the calories carried by each elf. So I would really recommend you try things like this out.
I am getting the question for personal purpose.
What? Manoj, what?
So I mean, I get a personal question in the assignment.
No, questions in assignment are given to everybody.
So this is all for me.
What?
So it is solved for myself only.
I didn't get you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Manoj, if it's difficult to talk, I would really recommend you put your question in the chat, because I'm not able to understand what you're saying.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So to learn Python by yourself, the main way, like the NPTEL is actually really helpful in my opinion. It properly goes to different parts of the programs that you really need to know. But in the end, you have to code by yourself. The only way to learn Python by Python is to code yourself.
In the assignment, I have so many problems. So please understand and answer me.
So what question do you have in the assignment? Like what specific question do you have in the assignment?
So like week 4, the coding questions.
No, week 4 questions are not corrected yet. I'm not allowed to answer them. If you have any questions, if you have any questions or specific parts of the question, you can ask that. But I'm not allowed to reveal the answers.
So are you not questioning?
What do you mean by that?
Hello.
Yes, Manoj.
So are you not answering my questions?
I cannot answer week 4 questions. No, that's not. I'm not allowed to.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Ali Asghar, I can answer that after the class, because that's not technically a programming question, but I can look into it after the class is over at 8. Is that fine with you? Okay, so anyway, back to LeetCode. So you essentially have like 25 questions of varying difficulty. Like for example, in this question, you have to properly read what's given and understand and try coding and get the answer.
Okay, sir.
Manoj, you don't have to reply to every question.
But you are asking the questions for me.
You can answer in the chat.
But why in the mic section?
Because it's interrupting.
But?
You're interrupting me.
Oh, sorry, sir.
Okay. Anyways, so these for we'll just solve the first question of the assignment of Advent of Code. I'm really grateful to Advent of Code for making these questions because they are actually kind of very nice. So the first thing to do is to save these values in the thing. So I'll be saving this in week 4. This is not a full file. This is Advent of Code day 1. .txt. Advent of Code.py. Yeah, I can do. We can do that after class. So, where did it go? Yeah. So first, we need to have a file, a function to read through this text file. There's so many things here that we have to go through it one by one. So we'll first just do that. So as you see in week 3, if you remember things in week 3, we use the width f. Yeah. So in this case is AOC dot D1 dot f. We'll just print f dot read lines. I guess this should work. Oh, I have not cd week 4. Yeah, so I'm able to read all the lines, and in fact it's a mess as expected. So we have to go through it smartly. So we don't know how many reindeers there are. Is it reindeers or elves? Okay, we don't know how many elves there are. So we'll first start with an empty list.
Hello.
Yes, Manoj?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So what is Python?
Manoj, this is the 4th week of the course. If you are not, please don't ask lazy questions like that. For line in f dot read line. So this essentially will help you print line by line. So if the line is empty, that means you have to go to the next, that's the next elf. If the line has a value, that means you're appending a value to the that else thing. So calorie count is equal to empty. If line is equal to empty line dot trim, wasn't it trim? Okay. Control methods in Python. Yeah, as you know, like you're not expected to remember every functions in Python, so it's very useful to keep this join. Strip, it's called strip. Okay, so strip. So if you do this, technically what happens is it will just print the values, and wherever there are no values, it will print an empty thing. So if line dot strip is equal to empty line, that means we have to go to the next elf. So elf dot append calorie count is equal to this, else calorie count dot append int of line dot strip. So we'll try this. That's ugly. That's so ugly. Anyway, we'll just print length of elf. And when you print, apparently there are 250 elves in that file, which makes sense. Did this function make sense? Right. Here you go. Did this function make sense? Hope that's right.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in the Python course,
Yeah.
the Scratch, what is used?
You don't use Scratch in Python. Scratch is a
but
different programming language. Python is a different programming language.
so but Scratch function is Scratch term is used in the Python.
No. There's no Scratch.
Okay.
So did this function code make sense to you? Like I once again I'll say this is not the only way to do this. There are many other ways you can solve this.
So can you explain this code
Okay.
in point of view of logics and that second line of code, how you imported that text file also?
The importing the text file was given was shown in the week 3 of the course, if I remember correctly. Essentially, what this means is what open does is it reads a file. So here, this is the name of the file, and this is the type of reading I'm going to do. If I write W here, it means I'm going to write to a file. If I write RW, if I remember correctly, it means I can read and write and things like that. So to know how that does, you go to file reading Python, and it will properly tell you. I don't like W3 schools. It will properly tell you how to use which. So like there's the method like W plus or A and things like that. Hate this site. Yeah, so yeah, these are the methods possible. Like you can read it in text mode, append mode, and things like that. So open allows you to read a file directly. Okay. So what I need to do is let's read the question again. The question says, oh, I need to go. Okay. Part 1. So we are given a file like this. That is, there'll be numbers in every line and spaces to denote spaces also. If you have a list of numbers together, that means that is the calories so held by one specific elf. Every time there's a gap, that means you're going to the next elf. So here we have 4 elves, 5 elves, and the first one is carrying 6,000, next one is carrying 4,000, next one is carrying 11,000, and so on. But that's not the actual file. The actual file is this one. In this one, we have a lot of elves and a lot of calories to count, and so that's the thing. So we have to read that file line by line, and depending on what kind of data I'm reading, I must do things appropriately. No, I've actually submitted it. The week 4 assignment is not corrected yet, so it might not be showing in the progress bar because of that. It will
Sir,
be,
sir, what is the actual use of strip function in this question, program?
the use of strip function is so that, like, if I have a thing like sometimes your text will be like this, and lots of random characters. So if I say a is equal to this, print a dot strip.
So I have a problem in Python for laptop.
Yeah, wait, give me a sec. So if I do just print a, it will print the entire thing. But if I print a dot strip, it will remove all the extra stuff inside and outside. So that includes things I cannot see, like new line and /t.
Sir, so basically this strip function is removing the extra spaces
Yeah.
which are in this.
Which you cannot
Okay,
see.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. No issues. So that's the strip function. Oh, someone asked a question just now. Just after this? No?
So
Okay.
in the L,
Yes? I can't hear you.
so in this function, strip function, which is used in commonly, which way?
Well, you can. It depends on the use case. If you want to use it often, you can. But there are many ways you can solve this. I just find
So
using.
what conditions we are use strip function?
In this case, I'm using it because I don't want to care about every line here ends with a hidden character which is called a new line character, and I don't want to include that in the file. Essentially, I don't care about that new line character.
Okay, sir.
So I first read the file, and then I start a calorie count. I start reading the file, I mean. So when I start reading the file, I initialize calorie count to empty. So for every line, I will carefully go through. So for line in f.read lines just means I'm going line by line through the thing. If I encounter a empty string, that means I'll do this other way around. If new line is not empty string, Control X, Control V, Control X, Control V, Control X, Control V. Okay. If I don't encounter an empty line, that means I've encountered a number, because that's how the text is. So that number will be a calorie count of one of the elves. So I'll include that in calorie count. If I do encounter an empty string, That means I must look at the things of the next elf. So I will take the calorie count I've made so far and give that value to the elf. And so I've done here elf dot append calorie count, and then I reinitialize calorie count because the next elf does not have the calorie count of the previous elf. So that is what this code does. That's how I'm finding all the values for the elf. Then the question says I need to find which elf has the most calories. So I use list comprehension for this. So for L in elf, so I'm looking through the values of elf and I want to find the maximum of this. I mean the maximum calorie. So I must first find the sum of all the calories held by the elf. So that will be sum of elf. Manoj, what's your question?
So in the LF, that is else if.
What?
Hello, sir.
This is elf.
Sir, in the LF, that is the else if.
No, it's not else if, it's elf. Like, yeah, it's this code.
So in the C programming, the else if is used in the function,
Well,
but
in
in Python LF.
I'm so confused. This is the elf if of the elf. There are elves here.
So please explain the else elf function.
There's no elf function. This one. Do you mean this function? This statement, this keyword? Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to please put in the chat. I really, because if you put in the chat, it's easier for me to look into the questions as it comes. And to find the maximum calorie, I can just do print max of cal. I hope someone asked me to explain this code, right? I hope it clarified what I've done here. So that's the part one. So if you want to look, you can do the part two yourself. It's a fun question. The questions might have a small Christian tone to it, but that's not an issue. It's just for really small fun questions. So is there any more questions? Someone asked another question, but I couldn't catch it.
So how many weeks in the Python sessions? Like week 4 is going on.
There'll be 12 weeks totally.
So there are 12 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
So that's a bit into Advent of Code. You have to make an account, but that's not a big deal. And because the Advent of Code is essentially over right now, you can look at any random question. But all of these questions just requires basic programming. The difficulty will increase and decrease, but you should know most of the topics for you to solve this. So if there are any more questions regarding any programming concepts, I can answer. Don't want to start a big question because that will take time. Yeah, like for example, this question properly requires to think a bit and answer. If necessary, I can upload the. Oh, so that's another thing. Like technically, I have not uploaded any of the answers to the last week's courses. Like for all these functions, I've not written the answers to these. If you want, I can write these answers and upload them. It will be there in the link that's given in the SWIME portal. But I'll do this only if necessary. So, well, class is technically over. If you have any questions, I can answer them now. Someone asked me about,
Sir,
yeah.
can you help me in my installation, sir? If
Yeah, sure. We'll
possible.
do that now. Okay, so for the YouTube audience, so this will be the end of the class. Have a great week ahead.